I am super, super excited to have these two ladies on with me today. You guys, my audience, if you're listening, you guys know my story. I started in 2018 after working almost 2 decades in television. And I just decided to cut out the middleman and decide, you know what, I'm just going to open up my own agency. I'm going to do ads. And so, of course, I get targeted by people who want to learn online advertising. And I come across this article, and it is all about bro marketing, and it caught my attention. And I think now it's known as the article that broke the internet. Like that's literally, whenever we talk about it, that's the thing, right? And this was at a time where, don't judge me for this. I was listening to guys like Ty Lopez. I was listening, to guys like Dan Henry. I was listening to, and lots of respect to all of those guys. I mean, they obviously are really good at marketing. They're really good at what they do. I learned a lot, but I came across this article, and this article was like, what, 8, 9, it was a long ass article, and I read every single word of it. And I was like, this is exactly how I want to do my marketing, like in the most authentic way possible. I don't want to pretend to be, this rich person, fake it till you make it, because obviously, like, I had a television background. People think it's a glamorous life. It is not. It is not. So it's not like I was living, the glam life. And I was like, you know what? I really want to market myself in the most authentic way possible. In television, I made commercials, and so I didn't know all of the tricks about utilizing pixels and all of these funnels and all of these fancy tricks. All I knew is like, hey, if I could tell someone about a product and put an ad in front of someone, people are going to learn and get educated on it. And so coming across Amanda's article, which I just recently, I was 40 years old when I found out that Miss Sarah, who I've been friends with for a while, she's keeping this hidden, that you guys like co-wrote the article that literally, like, I am here to say what my business would not be the way it is if I would not have come across that article, because it was a time, 2018, 2019 was a time where fake it till you make it was like big, all of these, really unethical ways of marketing the business. And it really just opened my eyes to, wow, there is this huge problem, and I want to be a solution to the problem of fixing it. And it all came from this article. And so I thought, what better way than to get Miss Amanda, who, I think all of you guys call her Bond, because that's how she refers to herself, which I think is amazing. And Miss Sarah, who you guys know, me and Sarah and her partner, Justin, we've jammed a lot. I sell their program. I'm their ads expert in their program, so I love them dearly. And I just thought that today would just be like kind of an open conversation where everything goes. Neither of them have been prepped for this. We're just going to have a discussion, because I thought it would be fun, because the industry has changed so much in the last, oh my gosh, even just the last 6 months. And the article came out in, what was it, 2018 or 2019?
Yeah, it was at the tail end of 2018. December 14th was the first time I teased it. And then December 17th, I just literally wrote 3 sentences on my Facebook page, put the link, and then Sarah and I and the other person involved in the development of the website side, Mike, we're all just looking at the metrics like, what is happening?
So let's go back there. So like, let's back up. Like, what inspired you guys to write that article? Like was it something, and we could be, we're just jamming, we're spilling tea, and we can be as open or as like secretive or whatever, like it doesn't matter, we don't know what's going to happen. But like, did something happen that triggered that article? Like, do you have your own personal story of something happening, or what was the inspiration behind that?
So the best way that I know how to describe it is, if I look at my own human design, if people aren't familiar with human design, it's kind of like a mix of astrology and just different modalities, like personality tests. I have this line where I think it's called the gate of provocation. So I basically just like to say shit on the internet and get a rise out of it. And so at that point, I had built my business just basically, saying some things, poking the bears here and there, and having a lot of fun with it. But I, like yourself, was an ads manager in the trenches behind the scenes of so many businesses, testing what was working with advertising. And so I was seeing in the timeline just a lot of people using that luxury lifestyle way of doing things. And what was working so well for us with the agency back then was focusing on the custom audiences, those humans that have already interacted with your brand, and going deep, deep, deep with it. And that just like spurred me to think like, maybe there's a different way of doing that. And so then I came across Andre Chaperone. If you guys don't know him, he's like an OG of internet marketing. Really love the content that he puts out there. He goes really deep with all of his prospects in terms of building that long-term relationship. And Sarah and I had actually been working together on a few other projects prior. And I came to her and I was like, do you know Andre Chaperone? Have you seen this multi-page pre-sale site? Can we do this? And that was how like the conversation came up in the first place. But it wasn't just a conversation and then all of a sudden the article was written. That process was like, what? It was like 6 months or something we went through.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think it's actually kind of cool because the whole vibe of the article itself was about like committing to the long-term customer journey and like committing to excellence and committing to like showing up for your customers and for the work that you do. And I think that was really evidenced in the actual creation of the piece, that like in a world where people are literally like slapping together checkout pages and selling products before they've even been put together. And like, yes, there's absolutely a place for moving fast, but this was such the opposite. It was like truly a labor of love that went through so many iterations. We literally holed up in an Airbnb together in Minneapolis with like poster boards on the wall. And I mean, again, if anyone has seen this, this is like thousands and thousands of words. There was a whole like development side of it. So I think we did like outlining kind of in the summer. We connected in Minneapolis in September to like flesh it out. And then it was still 3 more months of like really finishing the piece, pulling together a lot of, like, if you go look at it, there's tons of screenshots of like real conversations that Bond, you were having with people behind the scenes who were like refinancing their houses to pay for Facebook ads and crazy stuff. And so just like pulling all of that together, and then Mike doing like the development side of things took another 3 months.
Yeah. So just for anyone who's interested, the breakdown of how the team kind of worked together. So it was published on my website, theadstrategist.com, and it was selling a program called the strategy system at the end of it. So I look at myself essentially as the producer role. I spent months upon months of being in the trenches, gathering the information, consuming Andre Chaperone's course, Sphere of Influence, doing the interviews, just really taking a look at the landscape as a whole so that I could bring that to Sarah and say, here's my findings. Here is how I've presented it, like through the Sphere of Influence lens of shifting the beliefs that we need people to have by the time they get to the end of this article. Sarah then took it over at that point as the copywriter for the piece. And then, copywriter, we jam back and forth during that process, but she is responsible for the words on the page. And then I pick it up again in the editing phase. Editing, my mom used to sit me down when I was a kid, and like in grade 6, she'd like read my essays out loud to me. And she'd be like, this line doesn't sound great. How are we going to rewrite it? And I hated it back then, but now like as an adult, it's my favorite part of the creative process, because like, I just know I could not have expressed the genius of that article myself alone without the support of Sarah on that project. And then we had a third team member, Mike Heiser, who had worked behind the scenes with a lot of amazing people like Amy Porterfield and Melanie and Devin Duncan, Todd Herman. And he came in and he was the guy that tied it all together, got it live on that website, because we didn't even know what it was going to look like at the end of it. We just had all this amazing copy and we're like, okay, now what do we do?
Yeah, it
And
was
Mike,
like, here's an 80-page Google Doc.
Yeah.
We basically just wrote a book.
correct. And so Mike, when I actually showed him the Google Doc, he sent me a picture back that he had printed it out. It said top secret on the like title of the page. He bound it. Is that how you say it? He put bindings on it, and he sent me the picture and he's like, I need to be on this project. Like, how can I help out with it? So he was the person that basically actualized the vision onto the site, that allowed it to get the traction that it did.
And it like you probably don't like realize like how big of an impact that article really had. Like this was at a time where, you know, I had just started doing ads for people, and coming from the television side, like I understand the client journey. Like I had been doing it for 2 decades, long before like social media came around. And this was at a time where I was getting like a lot of my content was getting poo-pooed by a lot of these bro market. We'll just call it that because that's kind of how you guys referenced them in the article, by these bro marketers who are telling my clients, like when they're going to Funnel Hacking Live, this girl is wasting your ad spend on these ads because it's all like she's not getting you those instant customers. Where I understand like the building a brand and you know, building that relationship takes time. I actually lost clients because like they believed these guys and the way that they were doing things. Well, guess what? You know, iOS rolls around, all of these changes roll around, and guess who's like sitting pretty after, and it's all because like just seeing your article at a time where there was a lot of people that were like working against me was like really a huge inspiration to like it was almost like validation. Like, even though I don't come from the internet marketing world, seeing someone who was having success with her agency and like saying all of these things that like I just couldn't myself say, that article really helped me explain a lot to my clients on how all of these things worked. And the clients that stuck around with me are still with me. They're still thriving because of, you know, a lot of the things that I learned from you, and just like keeping me on that path where, you know, a lot of people wanted to take me down very, very different paths. And so I just want to personally thank you for that, because like that's one of those things where it was a hard time for me, because like I knew in my gut what I was doing was right, but like seeing everything and it's kind of funny, like when you look at some of the people who were around back in 2018, we don't really see them now, you know. And it's like, well, whatever happened to conversion, right? Like whatever happened to that? And so like who actually coined the term bro marketing? Was it you guys? Or like did you guys just, because
Neither of us.
I was sitting here thinking, I was like, man, I was like, that's actually exactly like what I think of it as bro marketing.
Yeah, no, neither of us actually coined the term. It came from an author and friend of my fiance's, MJ DeMarco. He had originally coined the term, which bro marketing means boiler room operations. And he like, you know, he has his term for it. We just brought it to this industry and said people are behaving in this way, which it's funny, if you actually read the article, it says it has nothing to do with gender or luxury car ownership, but yet that's the interpretation that so many people had. And I do believe it's probably because of the screenshots that we added of all the marketers in there having the Lamborghini and private jet photos as like a juxtaposition and example of just a different way of doing things at that time.
It's funny because while this article was in like production phase, Bond, you'd been teasing it a little bit, like there were conversations being had before it was published. And as a copywriter, I was working with multiple clients, and I had people scared that they were going to be like outed. I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I had people like asking me to sign NDAs out of nowhere and stuff because they thought I was doing this like behind the scenes scouting to like out them in this article, which wasn't the case at all. Like I never worked with anyone that I didn't like, but I think there was this sense in the industry even before it was created of like, we know we're on shaky ground right here. Like, we know this isn't sustainable and we can't admit it, because if we admit it, we can't keep selling the courses. We can't keep running people through the funnel. So like we have to keep this front up of like, everything's working, everything's normal, this works. You can do it too, if only you're willing to invest $10,000. But yeah, people were a little freaked out.
Yeah, it was such a fascinating time. And full disclosure, like the people that I mentioned in the article, I don't disrespect them as human beings. There may be things that they've done that I disagree with, and that like in that single moment of isolation, like I might, not respect that action. But as humans, every single person that is quoted in this article has achieved insane things in their life. And like that does not happen by accident. That happens by consistency and intention. And so one of the byproducts of it was a lot of people like literally villainizing and like hating those people to their core. And I'm like, guys, it's not that serious. It's like, this is a joke at the end of the day. But because this is our livelihood, I mean, before we started recording, we were talking about like how we learned how to place a pixel on a website is we just Googled this stuff and figured it out. That's part of the process of creating an expertise. And then coming online to this internet marketing world, and then being able to generate an income and earn a living from that expertise. It's this fine line of, shoot, like where do we land at the end of the day on the spectrum of this person just learned how to place a pixel, but yet they're teaching other people how to place a pixel, but that person values how to place a pixel. So why wouldn't they compensate them to place the pixel? It's just a fascinating industry. And I like the backlash and villainization was a little bit out of proportion from what we intended it to be. However, it did take on a life of its own.
Definitely. I also think some of it people really simplified, and it gave them an out for ways that they were using pressure or kind of some unethical stuff in their own marketing. Like, oh, I don't drive a Lambo, or I don't use paid ads, or I'm not a guy. So I can like point fingers and hate on these bro marketers, while I'm still using, at the end of the day, these very similar insidious marketing tactics. But because my branding is pink, or because I'm not actually running paid ads, like I'm able to like throw rocks at these bad guys over here and not acknowledge ways that pressure and scarcity and short-term thinking has like crept into my own marketing. And that's, I think, one of the things that I saw with a lot of the villainization. And it's like, okay, doing organic, like this was not an anti-paid ads thing. Like doing organic marketing is not inherently higher integrity. No. This is not an anti-flying private thing.
So let's take a look back then and now. So then, what were like, if you could name like the 3 most unethical things that you got, and you don't have to list names, but like, what are the 3 most unethical things that you have experienced working with clients that you were like, whoa, like this is really getting out of hand? Like I'll even start, even back then, I was running ads for people, who had these 2 Comma Club awards, but we were marketing them as, oh, we just had like a $2 million launch. But if you look at the ad spend, did we really have a $2 million launch? Like, to me, that was like one of the biggest realizations that I was like, you know what? Like, that was actually one of the things that made me want to like stop helping people like that and make an extra $1 million, and really want to go after the people who are like, you know what? I'm going to go after this audience that no one is targeting because they think they don't have, money. So that was the biggest thing. What back then did you guys see, like, as far as like unethical marketing and stuff like that?
I mean, I still think it happens today, but for one is when you promise something on your sales page and it's not what's actually delivered, or you're, hyping up things that didn't actually happen, you're using false social proof. And then somebody asks for a refund, and then you do not grant that refund, right? Like there needs to be accountability for the products that you put out into the world. And so a lot of the conversations that I had even before the article was produced of, I was sold into this thing because this person said that they had that result. I come to find out that's not the case. And, they're much earlier in their journey than they say they are. But when I asked for a refund, they said, like, not my problem. But it's like, it is your problem when you're not communicating like honestly and transparently, right? And like, there are people in this industry that just refuse refunds on all grounds. And like, for myself personally, if you ask for a refund, like, sure, we'll have a conversation of like, hey, have you utilized this product? Like, are you missing something that I can point you in the direction of? If they're like, yeah, I know all those things, I'm like, cool, here's your money back, right? Like, it's being in integrity with what you're putting out in marketing in the world.
I think the most common thing that I saw was people making promises without any nuance around it, where it was like, literally anyone can get the result at the push of this button with no context of like, you really need to already have an engaged audience, or you really need to already have this in place, or you really need to already have access to these resources. And instead it was just like, paint the pipe dream, get the money, and then like, it's your problem if you can't get the result.
It's
and
just
then there
your
were lots of
mindset.
little
Change your mindset, right? You don't have the
Yeah.
right mindset. Oh my God. How many times do we hear that? Like you just don't have the right mindset. Like, that's one of the biggest excuses that I still see to this day is, your mind, it's all your mindset.
Yeah. And I think then we saw a lot of like smaller things that customers have gotten more savvy to recently, but it's like the fake live webinars, the fake deadlines, the retirement sales, the 50% off this week only, which, I mean, let's be honest, it's not just this industry. Like, we all have the mattress store in our city that has magically survived through dozens of going out of business sales.
It's a drug front. It's a drug front.
But I do think there was more of that in this space a few years ago.
Yeah. Two things I wanted to add to that, Sarah. When you started talking about shrinking your big promise, I remember that was just something that you were sharing over your social media and just different communication channels. I loved that because it was telling people like, you don't have to create these programs that like promise these astronomical outcomes that you've never even created in your life or for your clients before. Like, you can just be honest that I take you from here to here, and that can be enough. And then human nature is just like, psychology and human nature is a funny thing, because like, when you even tell people, hey, you're not ready for this program, or you do need to have some sort of organic presence already, you need to have a sales process that converts, because ads only amplify what is or isn't working in your sales process already. The more you tell them that, the more they want to buy it before they have those things in place. And I'm like, please stop buying this program until you fix these foundational things, right? And a lot of people, they read it, and like you were saying earlier, Sarah, they use it either as an excuse, or they like see themselves as the hero of the story and believe that they can create that outcome without having the assets that they bring to the table. On the paid side, like when people would actually become customers, we would have humans show up that didn't have a sales process, didn't have like they were trying to run ads to emails that didn't sell anything off the back. They were just collecting emails, and they didn't have any social audience. They didn't have any engagement, any copywriting skills. And in my head, I was just like, I don't understand the interpretation of this article, because the true, like the core message that I believe I still carry through the industry to this day is like, you need to show up to this process of mastery, and ads are only going to amplify the level of mastery that you bring to the table as an expert, as an entrepreneur. And we're all on our own journeys, right? Like, we're at different levels of mastery, and we're going to keep like moving towards those at the end of the day. But if you're just here for the quick win, like, you tell people they don't have these assets, and then they just want to buy it even more. And I'm like, this is not what we want.
I saw such a great tweet. I wish I could remember who it was from, that said people will spend 5 years trying to skip level 1 when it only takes like 6 months to just go through level 1.
Yes.
It's so true.
People are so impatient. Like that's the one thing, like with my students, is just impatience. Like people are always like, because how many people are marketing, results in 90 days. And I always tell my students, no, data in 90 days to create a success plan to take, that will get you to eventually to like where you want. But like, there's this, like right now, like if I had to say like one of the biggest things that I'm seeing right now is that people are trying to take people from 0 all the way to 100 in like 7 days.
Yeah.
And it's just not like, I get it. People want that accelerated path, but people look at people like me, and I'm now just starting to get traction, but I've been putting out content now for 5 freaking years. I'm going on 5 years in April. But people see it, but because they've just started seeing me now, they're like, oh, well, it didn't take you long to do that. And I'm like, no, wait, let me tell you about the journey, like the journey. So like, if you ladies now were cooped up in your Airbnb and you were rewriting this article about like what people need to know now versus, because like, let's be real, like 5 years ago, you could run a funnel, an ad to a funnel, and be a bazillionaire, because that's just how easy ads were like back then, right? I mean, even just in the last 6 months, things have gotten significantly harder. People aren't showing up to webinars. They're not showing up to challenges. People are getting smarter to the whole online marketing thing. And a lot of people are on the cusp of like, well, crap, I got to go get a real job, or crap, like this business is like not going to last. Like if you guys were rewriting that article in 2023, how would you change the landscape of how you would put that article together, and what actionable plans would you have for people who are scared right now?
I'm so curious to hear your answer, Sarah. Do you have one off the top of your head?
Well, the first thing I thought when I read through it again, because it had been a couple of years,
Yeah,
was like, oh, this is still really solid. Like, I don't look at it and say, even though like Facebook average results have shifted and the digital marketing landscape in general has shifted some, there isn't a lot that I see and I'm like, oh, that's so outdated from like a fundamental perspective, which I'm happy about, because that's obviously the whole point, right? Is that like the customer journey isn't a new thing. It's cool that we have new tools, and maybe you can do it on TikTok now instead of just Facebook, but the actual like principles are really similar. I would say if there was things I would change, I think one would be painting like a bit of a different picture of what's possible. Cause I do think like in what it looks like right now, like there was a lot of focus in this one about like automation and the ability to set it and forget it. Not in like a pipe dream sort of way, but like, hey, once you get these ads working, like thumbs up, you figured it out. And now when people talk about like getting into Facebook ads, it's like, don't use this as an escape from content creation. It shouldn't be like, I hate creating content, so I'm going to do ads instead of organic. It's like, I think you need to kind of have that expectation that there's still going to be an ongoing creative process. I would want that to be clear. I think the other thing is like the picture we'd paint about bro marketing might be different. Like I said, I think it's gotten more insidious, where it's like easy to point the fingers at people, posting Lambos, but it's showing up in like subtler ways right now. So I think the picture that we would paint of that would be a little bit different, because it's still here.
So you have my ear on that. Do you care to elaborate on the subtleness of what people are doing now versus they're not doing the pictures in front of the Lambos? Because I think now we all laugh at that now, right? Like I think we all know that like the BS, but what are like the subtle ways? I'm just curious. And you don't have to share if you don't want to.
No. It's funny because it's like the reason that people use Lambos was because that works. Like it gets attention and there's a connection with it. And the connection isn't relatability so much. It's like this aspirational thing. And because that like hockey stick growth isn't quite as achievable now, I think what we're seeing is people using like way more relatable content, but with the same kind of manipulative backdrop. So instead of saying like, I can drive like you can drive a Lambo like me, you're seeing a lot of the like, people sometimes call it like vulnerability porn, where it's like, I'm going to post something that gets a similar level of like emotional response and engagement and use it to kind of like twist the knife or get the sale. But it's like harder to point fingers at that. And it's not even, again, this isn't meant to be like this moral superiority thing. Like we all are making decisions about marketing and what works every day.
Oh yeah, no, completely. Like it's so funny because my students really get like obsessed with, well, I don't have a fancy backdrop or I don't have a fancy this. Like, I'm like, dude, if you go back and look at all of my videos, like, I have bedhead half the time, not wearing any makeup. I'm like in front of like, like kind of how Alex Harmozy like now shoots like his videos in the closet. Like, it's not about the big flashy things. It's like more about like the information. One of the things that I think would be valuable and especially like you girls to talk about is, how do you see content, the way that people create their content, the shift that they need to make? Because so many people now are so like, they look at all three of us, right? And a majority of look, I mean, let's be real, like a lot of them think we're scamming people, right? Like I still don't understand how selling a Facebook ads course is a scam, but like people look at us like, well, they're scammers because of the way that so many people have been misled. How do you girls feel like people need to shift their content in a way that proves that they are who they actually say they are, and that they can actually get the result that they say? What do you feel like needs to happen with the shift of content from doing how-to videos that used to work, but now everyone's just copying everyone's how-to videos? How would you guys like speak to that?
It's like, this is such a nuanced conversation. And I think just to kind of piggyback off of what I would change of the article, I don't even know if I would change much at all, because I think I've softened through the entire experience. Because if you actually like look at Bond, who she was in 2017 and 2018, when she was developing that article, like I do question, like, was I just jealous of this shit? Like, was I, like, did I just want to be generating more income, and then therefore I'm attacking marketing tactics, which could be viewed as neutral because that's something that I didn't have in my life at that time? Who knows, right? Like lots of therapy was had between now and then.
Can't relate.
Just in general, like I think I've softened to humanity as a whole and just realized that people are doing the best that they can in terms of living their life and trying to create opportunities for themselves and their families. And they're not always going to be pointed to the right sources, or not even the right sources, the sources of learning that they resonate with the most out of the gate. And then therefore, like learning the bro marketing tactics, maybe there's some value in that because it teaches you what you don't then want to do with your brand down the line. But just because in 2016, I was working with clients and we were using a lot of the bro marketing tactics, does that make me an evil human being? Well, maybe my brain thought so. And then that's what caused me so much like strife during this process that I had to reflect on. Or maybe I was just a human being learning internet marketing and trying to do better for my family and, create a lifestyle that I was looking to live and still do good in this world. So like, it's so very nuanced, but the message still to this day that I really want people to know is that like, you don't need to go from 0 to 7 figures overnight to live the lifestyle that you aspire to. The lifestyle of freedom is actually much more attainable with much less revenue. It's just truly getting clear on like what you do want in life and then reverse engineering how to do that. But like pregnancy brain, my mind just my mind just went blank in the middle of that all of a sudden. But basically I was just trying to say, like, we don't have to do it so fast. We really just need to show up to the process of mastery along the way, and like focus first on learning how to help people through this process. And then the revenue comes as a result of creating really great things in this world. And then just learning from all of the experiences that you put out there based on your own like personal values. Because with this article, like people would email me. I promoted Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy 2 years ago, and somebody came back and they're like, "Why are you promoting Amy? You said she was a bro." And I was like, "I've never said that." That never came out of my mouth. And then I like went back and read the things, and it was a line in one of the emails. Sarah, you were the copywriter for the email, that said people were duplicating Amy Porterfield's latest sales page, something along that line, right? So it was like this assumption.
It's like this wasn't about Amy.
It wasn't about Amy at all. And I was just like, I think we just need to all realize we're just human in this process.
Yeah. And I think like that's, I mentioned earlier that there was so much villainization of like these really specific tactics, when it's like running ads is not more like higher integrity or lower integrity than doing organic or selling with affiliates or using deadlines. Like they all have such a place. But to circle back, Laurel, to like what I would think about content right now. I think how-to content through the lens of story is still really powerful. So when you try to do a how-to piece that's like generic and can apply to everyone, and it's like step 1, step 2, step 3 listicle, like I agree, like that falls flat at some point or is so quickly duplicated, or it's stuff people have heard before. But I love like stories of like, what are you doing with clients right now? What are you doing in your own life right now? Like, what's this little thing that you're testing with a client, or thing that you're shifting in your own practice or process? Because that isn't something duplicatable.
Nope.
And it's so powerful. Also, I think people in content focus so much on like before and after, and not like all of the milestones in the middle. And I think there's so much like missed opportunity for creating content that like highlights and celebrates like the little milestones. And so everyone wants like the star student testimonial of the person who got the biggest, flashiest result in 8 weeks. But like highlighting like the client light bulb moments or little customer first wins of, oh, they got their first ad launched and it didn't take them 7 hours is actually like, that's content right there.
100%. That's what I tell my students is like, just document the whole process of like what you're doing from start to finish. Like it's there. I have this one program, and Nick, my mentor, Nick Peterson, actually gave me the idea, because him and I, every like 90 days, we work on this like solvable problem. Like, what do you want to happen in the next 90 days? And we literally look at everything I did over 90 days. And we take the things that worked and we leave the things that didn't. And he was like, Laurel, he's like, literally every single day, doesn't matter whether you're sitting at your computer, whether you're sitting like at your phone, he's like, just talk into the camera and tell people, what are you doing and why are you doing it, every day for 90 days. And when I released that program, and people like come back to me and they're like, that is the most authentic program I've ever been through, because they're like, it's just you like literally sitting there talking, like sometimes your phone's like this, sometimes it's just your laptop, camera, sometimes it's the nicely shot videos. And they were like, I felt like I was like literally alongside of you, like the whole process of the 90 days. And I was showing them my results as I was doing. Like, I'm taking this video that did really well on Facebook and I'm putting $5 and I'm using this as a YouTube ad and showing them over the shoulders. And to this day, people say that that's like my best, like the best program. To me, I'm like, it kind of looks like shit because it's like so poorly shot, but everyone's like that. And I think that's what so many people are just so scared to put out content, because they're scared of the way that it like looks, because they don't have like the fancy stuff. And so, I always just tell people, like, just put out the content, like, because even just showing people the process that you're doing, and just us having this conversation today is gonna lead to someone having some type of breakthrough, just like I had the breakthrough whenever I read your article. It all comes full circle, like literally, like your article, it didn't like say, I'm not gonna say it like saved my business or anything, but it definitely saved my sanity at a time when I needed it the most. You guys probably hear that a lot, like, oh, I read your article at a time whenever I was thinking of this. You never know. And this is, speaking to people who are listening to this right now, you never know what piece of content is literally going to change the trajectory of someone's business or even their life. So just put it out there.
Yeah. To add to that, because this project was such a labor of love over such a long period of time, just my own content perspective is there's that balance between the in the momentness, which a lot of people are spending a majority, if not all of their time creating the in the moment content, but then they're forgetting to step back and reflect on, okay, now let's look at the 90 days and what's that journey been, and let's synthesize that into something that can be as evergreen, as relevant. This was written in 2018, which was 5 years ago. And that article still like brings human through the pipeline and still has people saying like, oh my gosh, you took the words right out of my mouth. So there's that balance of, yes, we learn so much sometimes, even just by verbally processing, right? Like us three are going to take things back from this conversation and be like, ooh, I could implement that better. As you were saying, document the process or look over my shoulders for 90 days. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm totally scaling a Shopify store right now. And it would be so fascinating to share with people the ups and downs. Cause like, I want to throat punch Facebook today. And so I'm doing things differently to overcome the inevitable hurdles, like through that process. But it's important to like, share those things in the moment, and for the longevity of your business and for your sanity too. Cause sometimes just like constantly producing, you're on that dang hamster wheel, like stepping back and taking the 6 months to really produce a well thought out article that can stand the last of time, or like can stand the test of time. Like that article has been over there sharing this message for 5 years now.
And you could still run it today. And that is why I wanted to have this conversation, because this is something that I tell my students all the time. A great strategy never fucking dies. And that's why I was hoping you guys were going to say, because like I promoted this as how we would change that article, but you guys played into my little thing that there's nothing to fucking change because it's a great fucking strategy. The tactics may change, but if you understand your market and you understand how to build that audience, nurture that audience, and give that audience what they need, nothing ever needs to be changed.
It's literally as simple as that. And like when I work with, my own business or my own clients, like once you create those cornerstone pieces of content, like you can run those ads at low budgets, like not scaling to the moon, right? But like you can run those ads at low budgets. I think that ad ran for like 2.5 years, maybe like straight, the same ad, right? And everyone's like,
which is like unheard of.
And it's like, yes, but the goal wasn't to scale into the stratosphere. Like the goal was to consistently reach people over time with a message that was solid. And so like from that set it and forget it side of the equation, it's like go through the process of producing all types of content, right? Like let it stream of consciousness come to mind, test this, do that, and then reflect, refine, create those cornerstone like pieces of content that are going to continue to work. And don't try and like make it explode overnight. Don't try and become a 0 to 8-figure business in 7 seconds. Like just enjoy the process of content creation, of helping people. Like looking back on my own journey, man, being in the trenches, like working with other brands, it's just added so much to my life that like, just a paycheck couldn't add at the end of the day. It's the experiences that you create with the people that you're building this journey alongside.
I
Yeah.
love that nuance that you added it about the like set it and forget it thing, that it's actually fully possible if your expectations are in the right place.
Yes.
If you're not expecting to like push one button and make 20 grand a month forever. Whereas like if you have the right expectations of, I want this to bring some of the right humans into my world every week, that's completely reasonable.
Yeah.
And so easy for every single person to do. Like I always tell people,
Simple, not easy.
but it's so simple. Yeah, like you said, it's simple, right? Because the messaging sometimes is a little tricky. But like that's like what, like, I try to get people to understand, like, Facebook advertising is still like the best blessing to small businesses that has come around. Like, coming from television, a spot in Dr. Phil costs $2,000 for one 30-second spot in primetime television. Like, think about the opportunity that, and people still complain about Facebook ads. And I'm like, you are not utilizing the best thing to ever happen to small businesses, like in probably forever right now, So is there anything that, like, I'm so glad that like the conversation ended the way that it did, because like I think so many people need to like understand that good strategy is just freaking good strategy. Is there anything that you guys want to add before we close? I can't be happier with the way that this conversation was, because like I had so much fun just listening to like the backstory and like of all of this stuff, because like I said, this article was one of the first things that I ever saw as a new business owner. So it was really cool to get you guys together.
Well, I want to start by giving like kudos to Bond, and like I hope that this is like a really cool example for everyone watching of like what's possible when you build mastery, and what's possible when you distill a message that's like worth listening to and worth sharing, and that works. Because as a copywriter, like I can write all of the words, but like this piece lives on because the ideas are actually worth something. And that's accessible for anyone in business. But again, it's not easy. It is available for everyone, but it is like, well, what do you believe about your industry for whatever niche you're in? Like, what do you believe about what works? What is the message you think people need to hear that could change their business or change their health or change the way they think about their relationship? And like, where can you get committed to sharing that in a way that's really shareable or evergreen or powerful, and something that maybe no one else in your space is like willing to share?
Yep.
Yeah. And just like, I couldn't have had a lot of the insights that led to some of the research, some of the conversations, without showing up every single day to this process and just being curious about marketing and my industry. If it was about a different subject matter, showing up to understand and learn and just really want to master and support people through that process. And every single day, like the funnest, the absolute thing that lights me up about this journey in internet marketing is just having those like small moments of epiphany each day when you deepen your own understanding of a subject matter. And so for any content creator, for any advertiser, if you can just follow the like learning pathway, the implementation pathway that's going to lead you to these insights, the outcome is that, yes, you're going to be able to create great content, but like that personal satisfaction of learning and leveling up through this process to be able to get to that outcome, like that's really what the journey is about. And all of the revenue is going to be a byproduct of like committing to that process, and stop focusing so much on the direct revenue. Like focus on the epiphanies, the implementation, the becoming better at your craft, and distilling all that into content. The outcome is going to be, a lifestyle that is true to you, whether you want Lambos or Chanel bags or private jets or whatever. I'm not going to judge myself for wanting, access to a private jet in the future. But that's part of the process that I'm creating in my life right now, regardless whether I have it or not in the moment.
Heck yeah. I don't think any of us would turn down a private jet right now. Oh, well, thank you so much for giving me your time, ladies, because like I said, like I respect the hell out of both of you guys. Like it was just awesome. You know, Amanda finding me, you know, it was awesome.
I responded to one of your ads, I think.
See guys, like for someone I've respected for a really long time, I literally was like, Amanda Bond just commented on my ad. Oh my God, Amanda Bond just sent me a message. Like it was really it was really exciting. It really was. It was super freaking exciting. And guys, guess what? She found me on a fucking $2 ad.
Yeah, she did.